Peace, family. It's your brother, Marc Lamont Hill, here on the Marc Lamont Hill official YouTube channel. Forgive me for taking so long to get this live up. It's been a crazy day, a lot of stuff going on, but I wanted to make sure that I had this conversation with y'all. I wanted to make sure that this topic went up today because it's something that's been going on for a long time. I've been on the internet for many, many years. I've been out in the public for many, many years. And for the last few years, every time I make a comment, every time I'm outside, every time, even in my YouTube channel's comment bar, I get lots of people who will say, very snarky, we can't listen to anything Lamont says. That's what they call me. I can't believe anything Lamont says because he believes that men can get pregnant. Dun dun dun. And it's used as like this cudgel. It's used as like if you black, the big joker in spades. It's used to prove that I don't know what I'm talking about, that I'm an idiot, that I'm detached from reality. And it's all based on a conversation that I had with Candace Owens. Maybe 3 years ago. It was right after George Floyd died. So maybe a year after George Floyd died, actually. So no, it was right after George Floyd died. I forget. It was either 2020 or 2021. I believe it was 2021. But either way, it was either 3 or 4 years ago. We had a debate. I met her over at the hotel at Trump Tower, and we had this whole conversation about everything. Sometimes people confuse disputes and bickering with like intensity or like discord. There was no beef. We had a very nice conversation beforehand. She was very nice to my daughter, took a picture with her, made a video for her friend. We talked before about travel and school. She talked about college. We had a whole great conversation. So it wasn't no beef or anything like that. And then afterward, in the conversation, we talked about George Floyd. She talked about police data. We talked about affirmative action. We talked about so many things. And as we talked about those things, I was offering evidence, facts, data. And one of the things that Candace is really good at is saying, well, she'll make point A and say, can you prove this right now off the top of your head? And because I knew that, I came with data. I'd say, well, yeah, I can. This study shows this, and this. And so she'd say, well, then what about affirmative action? And then just change the subject. So it's intense and you don't get to finish a thought, and it's going back and forth, right? But I still thought it was a spirited conversation. It's probably my most watched video on the internet. It's on her platform, not mine, but it's 3.5 million views. So it's a lot. It's intense. It was a lot going on. So that said, and yeah, it was 2020 because it was I remember the masking protocol. So then, of all that interview, of all the hours that we debated and talked, the piece that keeps coming up, the thing that everybody keeps pointing to, it, particularly people who don't agree with me politically, is the piece about the trans community. And again, we had a long spirited exchange about trans identity. And that long and spirited exchange about trans identity got whittled down to like 30-second TikTok bites and like 1 minute TikTok bites. And what's crazy is like, it'll come out, say June of 2020, and then it'll go away. And then 6 months later, 8 months later, it comes out again. Then a year later, it comes out again. And it's a good organizing tool for the right. So they use our debate. They cut it into 30 seconds. They edit out what I actually said, and they make it sound different so that I seem unreasonable or ridiculous. So what I want to do is show y'all a clip of what actually happened, show you the actual exchange, and you can decide for yourself what you think about it. But at the very least, your opinion should be informed by what I actually factually said. So check this out.
And you want to say you're a woman and we want to play the crazy game, we can do that. To then say all of society now is to pretend that it was all a social, no, it was a social contract. You were born a male, I was born a female.
Yes, that's a sex.
We are black. Okay, it's a color though. Black is it's a word that we use to say a sex. Female is a word that we use that has a meaning. It means you are born with a vagina. You can have children. You have a uterus. When you are a male, you are born with a penis. You can get a woman pregnant. These words have real meanings. We cannot suddenly get into society where there are no truths.
So to acknowledge a social construct does not mean that we ignore biology, and it doesn't mean that we don't have.
Can men get pregnant?
Depends. I know.
What does it depend on?
I know trans men that can get pregnant.
That means it's a woman. Only one sex can get
that's
pregnant.
A circular argument. That's
not a circular argument.
Yeah.
It's proving my thing. There is a truth, a concrete truth. You have to be born with a uterus to have a baby. Only women can get pregnant. The fact that we've arrived in a society where
that's the part I'm disagreeing with. That's the part I'm disagreeing with.
There's nothing to disagree with it. These are facts. So you can say that this person who is pregnant identifies as a man. That person was born a woman. I can tell you that every single time because only women can have sex because there are concrete truths about life.
Have babies.
Can have babies, pardon. And that is a hard truth about life. You cannot make that go away because you want to call a man, somebody who has a beard and dresses like a dude, a woman. Only if it's pregnant, I can tell you exactly what it is. It's a woman.
So I'll give you, let's go. So that was the argument. And what actually happened, and I see y'all in the comments, y'all could think it's an L, I took an L, whatever. I made an argument. Y'all can disagree with the argument, but at the very least, y'all should know what you're disagreeing with. Let me be clear. When this goes around the internet, it goes around, particularly when the right-wing media spreads it as disinformation, they spread it as, can men get pregnant? And I go, yeah. And then she goes, no, they can't, and then shuts me down, right? So it looks as if I am some irrational, liberal, probably white liberal even thinker who doesn't have any hold on the reality and actually thinks that now men can have babies. And I've had people make these types of claims. And the only reason I'm even addressing it is because it comes up every single day. I mean, even last night when I was talking about Israel and Gaza, somebody says, we can't listen to him. He thinks men can have babies. It's ridiculous. So let me be very clear with my position. There is biology and there is the social world. There is what our bodies do, and there is the meaning that we attach to the people who have those bodies. Okay? So let me be clear. I was never disputing that you need a uterus to get pregnant. I was never arguing that you don't need a vagina to deliver a baby. Those are biological, scientific facts. Karima is writing in and saying there are two sexes, M and F. I see you too, Corey. I'm going to go there because you make a great point. I don't disagree, Karima, my dear sister, that there are two sexes. Sex is the identity, the determination, the assessment, rather, that is made at birth based on what? Your body parts. They call you male because you have a penis. They call you female because you do not, because you have these other parts. You have a uterus, you have a vagina, etc. When my children were born, all of them, they told me the sex of the child. Now, some people have gender reveals. It's not a gender reveal because we don't know the gender of the child at 3 months and 4 months. It's just a genitalia reveal. They're just telling you the body parts the kid has. But we do know their biological function in general. Now, everyone with a uterus and a vagina can't have a baby. We know that. Everyone with a penis can't impregnate somebody. We know that too. And we have to be mindful of that. That's also an important thing. And there's intersex, to Corey's point, right? There's all kinds of stuff that's complex. But at the end of the day, they are, and by they, I mean the right, intentionally conflating sex and gender. I never argued that you could have a penis and deliver a baby. That's just dumb, right? It would be dumb to say, and it would be dumb to ascribe to me or to believe that I said that. What I am saying is there are people with uteruses and vaginas who do have babies. And when they have the baby, they deliver the baby. Most of the people in that delivery ward identify as women. Probably in most hospitals, 99.9% of them. Around the world, maybe, I don't know the number, but I know I've been in a lot of maternity wards, and I have yet to meet people who don't identify as women when they're delivering babies, but they exist. They exist. Some of the people delivering the babies identify as men. My position is to affirm and respect their decision to identify as men. I am not saying that they have different body parts than other people who delivered the baby. I'm saying that I respect their identity. Trans men have babies. Trans men, transgender men have babies. Now, so if we're going to have a conversation or a debate, and I don't particularly want to have a debate about people's identity or affirming people's humanity, so that's not a debate I want to have, but I respect people's right to engage that if they want to. But at the end of the day, let's be honest about what we're saying here. You're not actually saying, Mark thinks men can have babies and I disagree with him. What you're actually saying is, Mark affirms trans men as men and I don't want to do that. Or Mark affirms trans women as women and I don't want to do that. That's the actual conversation. But the problem is, and this is to Rose Ability's point, it's easier politically to stand in public and say, men can't have babies, duh, to me, than it is to say trans men aren't really men, because then you actually seem like you're denying someone their identity. Then you actually seem like a bigot. Then you seem like you are doing harm to people. And so they don't want to do that. So they twist it. Now, this is just a rhetorical sleight of hand. This is just a debate around identity and how identity is represented. So that shouldn't be a particularly challenging conversation to have, except we live in an age of misinformation and disinformation. So that by the time that information gets to the public, by the time that information gets to the people who reach out to me, the cousins that call me, the people in the grassroots political circles that I operate in, the people in the Black listserv and chat, when they see me say it, they don't get the context. When they watch it on TikTok, they've edited out the nuance of my conversation and my topic. And so what it looks like, again, is that I'm saying something ridiculous. They don't even play as much as I played in this clip. Go back to the social construct thing, because then it'll answer the thing you just said. I'm not ignoring what you just said. I want to tie it together. So the idea of my point was that a social construct doesn't ignore physical realities, right? The social construct is about how we as a society make sense of those physical realities, right? So for example, you said we're Black. Sure, right? I'm trying to think of you pick a light-skinned Black person, right? They're Black, right? We'd agree on that.
Mm-hmm.
Now let's go to the Dominican Republic.
Mm-hmm.
Let's go to the PR. Let's go to Puerto Rico. Let's go to Jordan. Let's go to Iraq. Let's go to Sudan. Let's go to Ghana, right? And let's go to South Africa. I'm picking these places very specifically because they have different racial logics and racial paradigms. And what it means to be Black here, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's a universal Blackness, right? That in Dominican, there might be 5 different other racial categories, right? And there are some light-skinned Black folk here who, when they go to Ghana, get basically seen as white, right? Because of how we socially construct it. Doesn't mean my biology changed. Doesn't mean my physical reality changed, but how society engages this stuff is what makes it a social construct. So similarly, when it comes so I'm not ignoring the realities of race. So with race and racism in America, and then I'm going to take it back to the gender thing. When it comes to race and racism in America, it's, yes, biologically we're all the same. I'm making. Right? Black people, white people, there's an infinitesimal difference between a Black person and a white person in terms of our genetics, right? This is superficial stuff. But that's a biological reality, right? It's a biological fact, right? Just like it's biologically true as me being born with a penis, right? But the truth is, but the idea that there's social meanings attached to that Blackness that make people fear me, or that make people think that that person's life is worth more because they're white or whatever. Those are social meanings that are arbitrary. Correct. And different. So to acknowledge social constructs doesn't mean you ignore biological realities.
But you just
And I'm making basically the same case.
At
I'll
birth
let you
and
hear
what we
it,
can do with those body parts. I'm not denying that. That's a biological reality. Again, the social meaning I'm attaching to it is what I'm saying is more complicated.
But it's not complicated. Can men give birth?
Sometimes. That's my answer. Yes.
And the answer that is crazy. And this is.
And so ultimately, I gave this analysis that I think was complex, and all that got emptied out. And all you hear on YouTube or Twitter or TikTok is, can men get pregnant? And I go, sometimes. And it's like, bruh, I said a whole lot more than sometimes, you know, and I don't feel no way about it. I'm not mad about it, anything like that. That's how the internet works. I've gotten people with gotchas on the internet, and I've had people misrepresent it that made me look like a champion. So you know, the knife cuts both ways. So I ain't tripping. But I do want you to see the leap in logic here. 7 Figure says, sometimes explain, Mark, please. And that's why we're here today on the live, because I've broken down my position, but I want to engage y'all a little bit on this, because so many of y'all ask me about this every single day. My God. So sometimes, the reason I say sometimes is because if we're talking about men as cisgendered men, then no, cisgendered men never have babies. That is a fact. Cisgendered men absolutely never have babies. I'm not claiming that they do. I'm not claiming that they do. I'm not claiming that they do. However, trans men, that is, people who were assigned female at birth, often people who have uteruses and vaginas, can have babies. Why? Because they have uteruses and vaginas. Now, the fact that they identify as men is what we're actually debating. We're not debating biology here. And I think that's what I'm trying to get at. Again, both of it, this isn't about, we agree biological men don't have babies, right? Right, I'm saying that biology isn't how we define our identities exclusively. We identify through the social world. All of our identities are socially constructed. I just made that point about race. I'm black. I'm black in the United States. Actually, my black ass is black everywhere. But there are plenty of folk who would not identify as black in one country or another country. They go to Latin America, they go to the Caribbean, they go to the Middle East, and their racial compositions look different. They come here and they're not black, but in Palestine, they're like, oh, who your mama is. I might go to Ghana and South Africa, and they might look at me different. So the point is, the sometimes of it is not that sometimes men's body parts, cisgendered men's body parts yield babies. This is a silly conversation. It's that sometimes the people who have babies identify as male. So the only question we should really be having is, do we as a society have a duty, a right, a responsibility, whatever, to affirm those identities, to recognize those identities? Kareem, you said, where am I? Like I said, my black ass is probably black everywhere, Kareem. My point is that some people who here are black, there may be more categories than just black or white, right? There might be 4 or 5 non-white racial categories, and you might fit into one of them, right? You see this with Latin America all the time, whether you're mestiza, whether you're criolla, whether you might be one of a lot of things. And when you come to the United States, you're either white or you're not. You're white or you're black. But I'm saying in other places, they may have a different category for you in South Africa, a different category for you in Ghana, etc. These are the examples that I'm giving. My point is not that I'm not black. My point is that the meaning we make around our identities, even when they see the meaning we make of our identities, even when they seem permanent and enduring and forever and universal, they're specific and they're historically constructed. They didn't always exist. Whiteness didn't always exist. Blackness didn't always exist. Cis and trans didn't always exist. I agree with you. But also this idea that trans people, trans identities, trans bodies, trans communities are new is also not true. The labels are new, but we could go back even to pre-colonial African society and see more complex displays of gender, more fluid displays and performances of gender. We didn't feel the need to label and set aside and stigmatize and isolate. I mean, I think Europe has done a very messy and complicated job with identity and has done a number on our brains around gender and race and all the other constructs. But the fact of the matter is, it's not just about biology. That's what Aru Raccoon is saying. He said, I'm a trans man. I know what my body looks like. No one is denying biological facts. All we're asking for is to be respected for who we are on the inside, which doesn't match the outside. So yeah, Aru is a perfect example. Like, yo, Aru, if Aru says, I'm a man, you want me to run around saying, Aru, you're not a man? Or some of you weirdos, show me your body parts. No. If Aru's a man, Aru's a man. And if Aru delivers a baby, Aru delivers a baby. It ain't my business. That's my perspective. Zakia, can biology be respected too? Yes, we are respecting biology. We are respecting biology. I'm not respecting biology would be me saying people with penises can deliver babies. You don't need no uterus. You don't need no vagina. That would be what I would be doing. That's what disrespect would look like. That would be lunacy. That would be uninformed. That would be problematic because it's just not true. I respect biology. I respect that you need these body parts to make a baby. I respect you need these body parts to fertilize an egg. I respect you need these body parts to have a Y chromosome, etc., etc. I respect all of that. I also respect sociology. I also respect anthropology. I respect the social world as much as the scientific one. That's all I'm saying. And that's look at Emily. Look at that. Look at that. What you say, 77 figures? Stop playing and dust off the Supreme. The Supreme 120 don't say nothing about cis and trans. It says, who is the original man? The original man is the Asiatic black man, the maker, the owner, the cream of the planet Earth, the father of civilization, the God of the universe. Father of civilization is in the NOI lessons, not the 120. But you get my point. Women ain't in that, by the way. Question number 2 isn't who is the original woman. Question number 2 is who is the devil? My point is, that's not making a distinction between biology and sociology. And neither am I in this moment. Right? I'm saying I affirm men as men. Now, there are moments where, and this is where the sometimes comes in, your manhood biologically is relevant to the extent that if I want to make a baby, I need certain body parts. We need 2 people whose body parts together make this thing happen. But when we walking down the street, when we sitting at the bar and we sitting at the restaurant, when I'm sitting in my classroom, you want me to tell my students, oh no, you're not. Oh no, you're not. You're not a man. I don't care what you say. You're not a man. Oh, you may say, well, you're not a woman. That is to me, a harmful strategy. What do we get for that? What do we get for telling people that they're not who they say they are? What do we get for telling people they're not how they identify inside? What do we get for that? Who's harmed by me affirming the womanhood of a trans woman? Who's harmed by me affirming the manhood of a trans man? Who cares? And I'm not saying that these matters don't have high stakes. And I'm not saying that only affirm it because it's low-hanging fruit. I'm saying we should affirm trans women because they are women. We should affirm trans men because they are men. It's the right thing to do. It's the right thing to do. It's the absolute right thing to do. I guess what I struggle with is why the hell is it such a struggle for y'all to do that? That's all. Y'all got more questions before I go, man? I'm gonna take a couple more questions and then we out. Also, shout out, yeah, we absolutely can spotlight Mansour. Mansour is now missing for is it 11 days now? We're gonna do a whole segment on our Palestinian brother who is missing, Mansour Schumann. He's a Canadian citizen who was in Gaza working as a journalist and an aid worker. I believe he was at the border when he went missing. I don't have that confirmed, but what I do know is that Mansour is missing and we need to find him, and we'll do everything we can to find him. but I wanted to at least make a note of that as well. Questions, comments, thoughts, a lot of them coming in, so I'm gonna take just a couple. Yo, that is so factual, yo. Zakia says, I guess I'm the thing I was co-signing as factual is the idea that some of these people never had trans friends, right? Now I'm introducing a new question or comment from Zakia. She said, I guess some trans are ignoring biology, makes it hard, and they're making biology and so socially equal. Who's doing that and how? How are trans people ignoring biology? I'm not saying they're not. I'm not saying they are. I'm genuinely asking. I want to understand what you're saying. I want to understand what you're saying. So help me understand, Zakia. How are trans people ignoring biology? Taha Abdurrahman says, how about you say that men cannot have babies, only women can have babies? That out of respect, I'm calling this person a woman because they've asked me to. It's their preference. I mean, that might be your belief system. That might be your ideology. That might be how you see the world. That's not how I see the world. I'm not saying this is a dude in a wig, but I'm going to pretend it's a woman. Like Candace, that's Candace Owens' quote, not mine. I'm not going to say, oh, this is a woman cosplaying a dude. Let me pretend. No, I'm saying womanhood and manhood are social constructs. They are rooted in our social responses to biological realities, absolutely. But at the core, I'm saying a trans woman for me is a woman. A trans man for me is a man. Now, I don't pretend, and people may disagree with me on this, but I don't pretend that there are no distinctions. Of course, there are distinctions. I'm not pretending that there's no considerations we should make in how we navigate the world, whether it's sports, whether it's relationships, etc. I think that's relevant too. For example, there are people who say trans women are women and therefore they don't need to disclose that they're trans. And to ask a trans woman to disclose that they're trans when you're dating them would be transphobic. I don't agree with that. I think people have a right to know people's cis and or trans identity when they're dating them. I do believe you have a duty to disclose that. I think there's a pragmatic question because there's so much ugly, nasty, inexcusable, indefensible violence against trans folk. So I understand why people are afraid to disclose. I also understand why people wait because they're afraid and because there's so much harm that comes. And you know, a lot of trans women talk about how men actually do know and pretend they don't. And then when the disclosure happens, they use that as an excuse to wrestle with their own stuff, right? I hear all of that. But at the core, I believe that we have to disclose and share information, any information that absent that information, a person may have made a different choice. Okay. I think that's important. So it's not like I'm ignoring difference. I'm simply saying that I see it differently. Let me see questions, comments. What are your thoughts on comedians using this topic? Some use it very well. Some are just a-holes. I agree. You know, sometimes it feels like people are punching down. Sometimes there's a sophisticated, interesting joke about power relations and about race and about manhood and our constructions of manhood. And I'm like, oh, these are some good jokes. Then other times you're just beating up on trans people. You're just being transphobic. Yeah. Yeah. I think that is so I say some comedians do a great job. Chappelle ebbs and flows. I ain't gonna lie to you. There's a few Chappelle jokes I'm like, okay, that was funny. Then there's a few where I'm like, that's kind of funny, but that might be funny to me because deep down we're still struggling with transphobia in society. And then there's others that I'm like, yo, this is just punching down. This is whack. This is not cool. This is absolutely 100% not cool. We can't do this. And at this point, I feel like Chappelle is often an example of someone who is punching down, and now he seems to be obsessed with saying like, look, y'all not going to stop me from doing this. Y'all not going to stop me from talking about what I want to talk about and who I want to talk about. So I'm gonna keep going. That's what it feels like with Chappelle sometimes. Like it feels almost like a challenge and a dare to him. So he's gonna keep rocking with it. I don't love that, but yeah, but I love Dave Chappelle and I think he's brilliant. I just think sometimes he goes too far on this. So that's that. Other questions, comments before we go? He said Chappelle's obsessed. I don't know if he's obsessed with them, but his last 5, 6, maybe even comedy skits have certainly had them as central themes. This most recent one starts with the whole Jim Carrey joke is I don't want to be a spoiler, but he begins the show with a trans joke. So it's certainly common in the Chappelle oeuvre to do that. All right. So let's keep pushing, y'all. I'm taking 2 more questions and then we out. I don't usually take this many questions on lives, but Leah Thomas is a Bane, frankly, an entitled one. I don't know what Bane means. As a male, she ranked. I mean, you mean like a bane of one's existence, like Bane in essence. As a male, she ranked something like 472 in the world as a swimmer. I mean, someone might make an argument that all women would rank 472 if they competed against men in swimming, and that Leah is competing against women in swimming because she's a woman. I do think the sports debate is a complicated one. I think it's an interesting one. And it's not one that I think we should just concede. I think it's let me just say this, because I don't want to I want to flesh that out with more. I want to flesh that out in another segment, because I don't think that this is the context for it. But what I will say is what I will say is I think that there is a huge difference between affirming someone's manhood or womanhood as a trans person and saying that we don't want to have any conversations or raise any questions about trans athletes in sports. I think we can have both conversations. I think we can say, hey, I affirm your womanhood, I affirm your manhood. Now let's have a conversation about sports, which is not just about the social, but is rooted in biological differences, right? I think we should have that conversation. I'm open to having that conversation. But we have to begin that conversation not from a place of transphobia, not from a place of antagonism, but instead from a place of, yo, I affirm your humanity, I affirm your gender identity. Now let's figure out how we can create fair and just outcomes for everybody. But the problem is the right uses the sports debate not because they're really concerned about girls' participation in sports. They do it because they want to use it as an excuse to beat up on trans folk. It'll be a city or a state where not one trans woman has competed in basketball, swimming, soccer, whatever, and they act as if it's a problem. And oftentimes these are solutions in search of a problem. And then everybody's outraged and ginned up and they're like, oh my God, all these, there's all these 7'2" trans girls who are going out for girls basketball and winning all the titles, and it's or in track and field just dusting everybody, or in swimming just winning all the medals. And it's like, that's not actually happening. It's a solution in search of a problem. And so it's more about shutting down trans people and beating up on trans folk than it is ever about actual fair competition in sports. That's my concern about the sports debate. My concern about the sports debate is largely about how it's a tool of misdirection. Again, I think we need to have a sports conversation. I don't think it's a simple conversation. I disagree with folk about that. But that's just me. We have to talk and think about it. I think that's the conversation, and we have to be able to have honest, tough conversations about it. I think that's the conversation. But that's it. And I'm definitely going to, I'm sorry, I keep this joint be moving so fast. I get a different thing that I'm choosing. Yeah, I'm going to have that conversation, and it's going to be an interesting one. It might be a tough one. Sean, will you affirm my identity as your? I will affirm your identity as a dickhead. Deal? Solid. Cool. Let me see. They're prioritizing about trans women athletes while ignoring abuse by coaches in women's sport. Exactly. So there's like legitimate things happening in women's sports, abuse, etc. And instead of doing that, we're talking about again, a problem that is very, 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 very minor, or minor in the sense of like not that many people are talking or complaining about it. So it's like, come on, bro, what are we doing here? What are we doing here? And I struggle to take those kinds of things seriously. I take the issue seriously, but but when these right wing Republicans in these states where there's like one girl in the history of the state who wanted to play like badminton as a girl, a trans girl wanted to play badminton, and they're acting like the sky is falling. I don't accept it. I don't accept it. GSP says, way to switch the subject. What was the subject? Am I missing something? I addressed the babies thing. I think I addressed it thoroughly. If there's a piece of that I missed, let me know. Hill, they keep asking in this chat if they date a trans person, but the question is, would a trans person date them? I mean, I think both things, right? I think that's right. I mean, like people, the dating question is an interesting question, though. I get your point, Maddie, and I appreciate the joke, and the levity there, but also the seriousness of it, right? Y'all out, some of y'all out here dissing trans women and trans men, and maybe they don't want your ass, right? I think that's a fair point as well. Yeah, I think that's a fair point as well. But I think the dating question is an interesting one. Again, that's and I thought I addressed that earlier. I think people need to disclose. I don't think that that's something that people should keep to themselves. I don't. Now the when of it is interesting. Do you disclose that before the first date, after the first date, etc.? I mean, I think for me, the clear-cut time is if someone is, and we've had this debate on my show, not debate, we've had this conversation on my show. I think if someone is about to have sex, before any sexual activity happens, I think people need to know everything. I would argue before you go on a date with somebody, you should tell them that. People should be able to make their own choices. That's my belief. But again, I also understand the harm and all the other things that trans folk have to deal with: harm, stigma, shame, violence, etc. Would Mark date a transphobe? That was the question. No, I wouldn't date a transphobe or a homophobe or a racist, a white supremacist, an anti-Semite, an Islamophobe. I don't want to date anybody who hates people. That feels obvious. I don't think I didn't avoid it. No, I wouldn't date a transphobic person. This is a good question, right? So what need would there be for a trans not reveal upfront they're trans? For a trans, not to reveal. What I want to do, I want to bring in some of my trans friends, my trans family, my trans sibs, and maybe have them have this conversation. I think that we should have trans folk speak for themselves. I don't want to speak for trans folk. I don't want to represent their positions, and I don't want to make them univocal or monovocal either. There's different positions among trans folk. So I think that we can have an array of voices. But I think it's the conversation that we need to have. I think it's the conversation that we need to have because I think it gets I think it's complicated. I think it's complicated. Somebody said, well, you don't disclose all of your, let's see if I can find, I think it was Zakia. Or maybe it was Krista. No, it was Christy. I'm sorry. She said, do you expose your deepest secrets on the first date? I don't. Inform before intimacy, not on first date. I mean, maybe. I don't know. I don't know about that. It's an interesting conversation. I've never dated a trans woman, so I don't know. I would want to know before I went out, right? Because part of why you date is if you're dating for partnership, you're dating for a relationship, or you're dating for sex. If you know going into that this isn't, that I don't want to marry or partner with or have sex with someone who is not of a certain sort, I think it's reasonable to be told that ahead of time. I do get the point about the deepest secret. And again, so I'm not saying you're wrong, Christy. I'm saying I get the tension. I see the challenge here. That's why I say I think it's really important to have trans voices on here to have this conversation and to talk. Yeah. That's my position on it. But We all got different positions. But at the end of the day, taking it back to the beginning, yes, men can have babies. Trans men can have babies. And I respect trans men's rights to, and I respect trans men as men. I respect trans women as women. And so if you ask me, can men have babies? I say trans men can. It's a simple answer. Yes, trans men can. Let's just have that conversation and be honest about it. All right, family. I want to thank you for watching. Hit the like button. I know some of y'all gonna be hitting the dislike button after this, John. This might be the lowest ratio of likes to dislikes I had, but I want y'all to hit the like button. I want y'all to what else do I want y'all to do? I want y'all to hit the like button. I want y'all to hit the subscribe button. Some of y'all might be hitting the unsubscribe button, but stick with me, y'all. We got lots of topics. We ain't always going to agree, but we always going to be family. So hit the subscribe button. Also hit that join button so you can become part of the MLH family, and support the channel. And of course, if you want, you can hit the Cash App right there. Drop in something on our Cash App. MLHTV is the handle. $ MLHTV, and we can have a dope conversation about the specific things we're going to do with these resources. But a lot of it is expanding the podcast. A lot of it is building a studio. A lot of it is adding more shows. A lot of it is adding more voices. All the stuff. So let's have that conversation. I'll see y'all soon. I think I'll see y'all later today. We're going to be talking about some other stuff around Palestine. We're talking about Malcolm X's legacy, I think, today. And we will be talking about whatever y'all want to talk about. In fact, we may just do a Q&A tonight where y'all ask the questions, especially for members. So let's do that. All right, family. I'll see y'all soon. Peace.